What's going on, guys? This is VinylicPuma, back with another Borderlands 2 video, and today I figured we could talk about Borderlands 2 glitches, and more specifically, XP glitches for Borderlands 2 in 2019. Now, due to how Borderlands 2 awards experience from defeating enemies, there have never really been very many super great experience glitches for the player to take advantage of. After all, killing enemies in Borderlands 2 awards XP, but due to how level differences between the player and the enemy can greatly alter the amount of experience gain, many experience gaining methods usually don't work after a few levels. Sure, maybe that level 5 bandit awarded, say, 40 XP per kill when you were level 5, but it's not going to award any experience once you hit level 64. So there are definitely diminishing returns when it comes to gaining experience, save for turning in side quests, which do seem to award the specified amount of experience points regardless of what level you are at when you complete them. With all this in mind, it's actually kind of difficult to glitch yourself a bunch of experience in Borderlands 2. You either need to mod your game to make it so quest rewards award a crazy amount of XP, or you have to rely on more conventional methods of gaining experience, which usually just consists of fighting enemies that match your level. However, there is one way to earn experience with relatively minimal effort that still works in 2019, and that's through what I suppose could be called the Sanctuary Dummy Glitch. Now, in order to perform this glitch, you'll need these three things. The first thing is an infinity pistol, which the best way to get one of these at pretty much any stage or playthrough of the game is from Doc Mercy during or after the medical mystery line of side quests. Assuming you've completed this quest already, you can farm him at his designated spawn location that is in Three Horns Valley. Second, you're going to need to make sure that you've not completed Marcus's elemental weapon tutorials. These quests are meant to introduce the player to the various elemental weapons that are on offer. And as I said, you're going to need to make sure that you haven't completed all 4 of these quests, because if you have, then you're not going to be able to perform this glitch at all for a given playthrough. Now, as a quick aside, it's probably more ideal that you make sure you haven't completed any of these side quests before doing this. That way you have some choice over which quest or dummy you want to gain experience from, as the loader during the corrosive version of the quest takes longer to defeat, but yields more experience than the typical bandits from the other 3 quests. Feel free to pick one of these, but if I remember correctly, you can't crit the loader while you can crit the 3 bandits from the other 3 quests. But finally, and moving on to our third thing, you'll need to know what the state of Sanctuary is, or more accurately, you'll need to know whether Sanctuary is airborne or not. The same glitch or exploit can be performed when Sanctuary is in both states, but the method to actually get into either of these out-of-bounds areas is going to change depending on whether Sanctuary is airborne or not. Assuming Sanctuary is airborne, the player is going to need to go to the back alley that's near Marcus. They'll need to go to the end of the hallway and then perform a grenade jump straight up. If done correctly, the player will land on top of the end of the alley, and from here, the player can face diagonally to Marcus's like I'm showing here on video, and from here, you can either grenade jump or do a regular jump straight and into the next area. If done correctly, you should be able to get into the area just beyond one of the walls in Marcus's shop. From here, try to stay close to the walls and make your way towards the back, and once you reach the end, try to shimmy or just jump into the shooting range area, and if you do it correctly, you should be able to walk right up to the target dummy. Assuming Sanctuary isn't airborne, the method of getting to this area is slightly more and less complex. This method involves performing various ledge jumps, and to start, you'll need to go to this specific bench outside of Marcus's shop. From here, jump on the bench like I'm doing here, and then try to position yourself so you can jump on the overhang like I'm doing here. Once you're on top, just traverse the ledges like I'm doing here, and eventually you'll get to a point where you're on one of the side roofs of the building that has the fast travel inside. From here, you'll need to grenade jump from the side roof up and onto the main roof. And once you get to the highest part of the roof of the building, you'll need to face the direction that I am in video, and then perform a running grenade jump to launch yourself over the building that's in front of you. From here, if you shimmy around, you'll eventually drop into an out-of-bounds area, and to get to the firing range, you'll need to take the path on the snow-covered wall that I'm doing here, and you should eventually come to a black box. carefully walk inside and then jump up and on to the firing range platform, and you're basically inside. Ultimately, though, once you've fulfilled these 3 requirements by making sure you know whether Sanctuary is airborne or not, you've made sure you haven't completed Marcus's elemental tutorials, and you've made sure you've gotten your hands on an infinity pistol, you're basically good to go to perform this glitch. Which at this point, it's really just a matter of optimizing your ability to take out the dummies as fast as possible. The infinity should essentially allow you to rubber band your controller as you can continuously keep firing at the enemy. Performing the out of bounds glitch, on the other hand, should allow you to get up close and personal with the dummy to make your shots considerably more accurate. I suppose you could also just stand in here normally and not perform any out of bounds glitches and shoot the dummy that way, but doing the glitch should allow you to jump directly on top of the dummy's head and then aim your reticle directly at the enemy's head to land some pretty easy criticals. Even if you decide to choose the loader and do that instead, you can still rubber band your controller at this point as well, and you should be gaining a moderately decent amount of XP for a short period of time with basically no effort. With this said though, there are definitely some limitations to doing this, and perhaps the most obvious of which is getting the infinity pistol itself. In normal mode, the infinity pistol spawns at around level 8 or 9. True Vault Hunter mode, I think, has its spawn around level 36, and then you can get one at level 50 once you've completed the True Vault Hunter mode playthrough, and then Ultimate Vault Hunter mode will allow you to obtain an infinity at any level between level 50 and 72, since the enemies scale to the player's level. With this in mind, there's usually only a short window of time when the infinity is viable to pull this glitch off. While it's true that the infinity is generally a much higher quality pistol than many others in the game, it still performs at its best when the enemy is at the same level or around the same level as the infinity itself. In fact, you can find yourself in a situation where the level of the dummy after completing a few story quests exceeds the level of your infinity, so just keep that in mind. Another noteworthy issue with the infinity is the fact that the infinity is simply rare and actually kind of difficult to get in the first place. While it's pretty easy to get Doc Mercy to spawn, since he consistently does so after you've completed the medical mystery quests, you still have to get him to actually drop one of these, and like many other mini-bosses you can farm in Borderlands 2, it usually takes a while for one of these things to drop. Sure, maybe you can get the infinity to drop after like 10 minutes, but it's also possible you might end up spending 2 hours of consistent farming to get one of these things to drop, and if you ask me, at that point it's more practical to just play through the game normally. Moving on from my qualms with the infinity though, another thing you'll probably end up running into with this glitch are issues with the level of the dummy itself. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there's definitely a limit to how much experience you can gain from killing enemies that are a lower level than you, and assuming you're going to rubber band your controller and go off and do something else for a while, you will find that you'll start to encounter diminishing returns. This also gets compounded with the fact that it seems like every new level in Borderlands 2 requires substantially more XP. So where it might have only taken 20,000 or so XP to get to level 8, it might take around 230,000 XP to get to level 19. So the drop off in XP gain by doing this glitch can be pretty high, and it can take a really long time to get to that next level. Fortunately, you can raise the level of the dummy. In Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, you simply just have to level up, and the levels of all enemies, including the Sanctuary dummy, should scale with you. In normal and true Vault Hunter mode, all you have to do is simply complete the main story quests and the level of the dummies should increase. So, as long as you complete some story quests every once in a while, you can come back and check the level of the dummy to see if it's higher. If it is higher, at that point, and like I mentioned earlier, you're really only limited by the level of your infinity, as it will take a lower level infinity much longer to get a kill than one of adequate level. At this point though, I think my only complaint would be the amount of XP gain you can get per kill. While I've discussed already that you can get diminishing returns by doing this over extended periods of time, I also think the amount of XP gain for doing this each time isn't really that high either. For UVHM at level 64, I got 246 XP off of a level 64 dummy. While this can potentially add up over time, I think there are just better methods of obtaining experience that are out there. As an example, and while it requires specific gear, farming Pyro Pete's bar is faster as you have the potential to knock out multiple enemies at once, especially if you're using a Shim Shield and a Norfleet. While you'll usually need to be at a higher level to take advantage of this, say maybe around level 30 or 50 or even higher than that, you do have the advantage here of being able to acquire XP from both the enemies in question, as well as by turning in the Tier 3 Bar Brawl rematch that accompanies it, which when done consistently should allow the player to level up fairly quickly in both a group and co-op setting. You can also decide to farm Pyro Pete here if you want as well, which should allow you to acquire some decent quality items for your characters too. So in general, coming here to get some XP is a better choice in my opinion. Another great method of gaining XP for solo players is by simply shooting Varkid pods. Obviously, you'll need to make sure they match the level of your character and the weapons you're using, but if you can get a few larval Varkids to go into the adult stage and then you quickly shoot the pods, you can get roughly 5 times the XP that you would for killing a normal Varkid. It's also possible to get multiple Varkids evolving at the same time, and again, if you're quick enough, you can usually gain a pretty decent amount of XP in a relatively short amount of time. It also doesn't hurt that the XP gain ends up scaling the more powerful the Varkid evolution is, so an adult Varkid going to a badass pod will yield more XP per kill than a larval going adult. So if you're willing to take some risks, you can get plenty of XP this way. Perhaps the best method for farming Varkids for XP, though, would be farming the mutated Varkids that you spawn by injecting the Varkid pods during the Mighty Morphin side quest. While this is really risky since mutated Varkids are pretty strong and have a lot of health, knocking one of these things out yields a lot of XP, and is usually about on par with defeating a badass or a super badass Varkid. You just need to make sure you don't pick up the samples from the mutated Varkids you knock out, as that can potentially complete the quest, which makes it so you can't inject Varkid pods anymore. Regardless of how you decide to farm Varkids though, the best part about farming them is that it doesn't require any specific weapons or gear, and since it's usually a Varkid pod you're taking on, it's not going to be fighting you back. Plus, you can find a number of areas in the game that spawn Varkids, and a few of these areas will even have the enemies scale to your level. Super early on, I like Tundra Express, but once you're able to get to the Caustic Caverns, the level of the Varkids should scale with you as you complete story missions, or if you're in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, they'll just scale with the player's level. So you should always be able to get a decent amount of XP this way, and I think you may end up agreeing that this is a little bit superior and easier to do than the Sanctuary Demi-Glitch. At the end of the day, I actually think you're better off just trying to play the game normally while trying to gain XP. After all, quest rewards will always award the specified amount of XP they list regardless of your level, and when it comes to gaining XP from generic mobs, you're usually better off just taking on slightly tougher enemies, as the Dummy in Sanctuary doesn't really award that much XP. When you're getting only about 246 XP per kill at level 64 in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, that's not really a whole lot, and I think you could definitely do a lot better. All this said though, I do have to admit that doing this glitch at high or max levels is pretty decent if you want to boost a friend's low level character. Especially since having an infinity at max level is more practical, and it's much safer to take on a dummy by yourself in a co-op setting, as opposed to taking on some mutated Varkids. So in that sense, I'd say this method of gaining XP could actually be pretty good. Though I will say that if you're trying to do this solo, you're really just better off just playing the game normally. Otherwise guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash the like button, click the bell so you can be notified when I upload more videos, and as always, and again, thank you all so much for supporting this channel. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.